Most people believe they are the person they intend to be. I'm trying to be disciplined. I want to be confident. I'm working on consistency. I plan to change. But intention is not identity. Repetition is. You are not who you say you are. You are what you repeat. That's uncomfortable because intentions feel good. They make you feel aligned with your future self. They make you feel productive. They give you emotional relief, but your life does not reflect your intentions. It reflects your repeated behaviors. Let's start here. You intend to wake up early, but you repeatedly hit snooze. You intend to train consistently, but you repeatedly skip when you don't feel like it. You intend to build a business, but you repeatedly delay execution. You intend to communicate better, but you repeatedly avoid hard conversations. What do those repetitions build? Not your ideal identity. They build your current one. And identity is not built dramatically. It's built quietly. Through daily repetition, the lie of intention. Intention is comforting. It allows you to say, that's not who I am, I'm just going through a phase. But if the phase lasts months or years, it's not a phase, it's a pattern. And patterns create identity. You don't become disciplined because you want discipline. You become disciplined because you repeat disciplined actions. You don't become confident because you read about confidence. You become confident because you repeatedly do uncomfortable things. You don't become consistent because you promise to be. You become consistent because you show up repeatedly. Identity is behavioral, not verbal, not aspirational, behavioral. And behavior is repetition. Why people fail at this? People fail here because repetition is boring. Intention is exciting. Repetition is invisible. Intention is dramatic. Repetition requires patience. Intention requires emotion. Your brain prefers emotion. It prefers excitement. It prefers novelty. That's why starting feels powerful. You feel aligned. You feel motivated. You feel like a new person. But identity doesn't change in the first week. It changes in the 100th repetition. And most people quit before the 100th repetition because nothing feels different yet. This is where they misunderstand growth. You expect to feel like a new person quickly, but you don't feel different until your behavior changes long enough to rewire your self-perception. And that takes time. The gym example. You go to the gym for 2 weeks. You feel good. You feel productive, but you don't look different. So your motivation fades. You miss a day, then 2, and then a week. Then you say, I just can't stay consistent. But you never repeated the behavior long enough for identity to shift. If you trained for a year without stopping, you wouldn't say, I'm trying to be someone who works out. You would say, I'm someone who trains. That difference matters. One is intention, one is identity. And identity feels stable. The work example. You want to build a skill, so you study for a few days and you feel inspired. But then you skip a session, then another. Then you restart the following month, and this repeats. You don't lack potential, you lack repetition. Mastery is built in the boring middle. The daily practice, the unseen hours of the quiet reps, repetition compounds, but it only compounds if it's consistent. The procrastination loop. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. You repeat avoidance. And every time you repeat avoidance, you strengthen the identity of someone who delays. Then you say, I'm just a procrastinator. No, you're someone who has repeated procrastination. And what is repeated becomes familiar. What is familiar becomes identity. But that means something powerful. If repetition builds identity, then repetition can rebuild it. Identity is evidence-based. Your brain doesn't believe what you say, it believes what you prove. If you repeatedly break promises to yourself, your brain learns, I can't trust myself. If you repeatedly follow through, your brain learns, I am reliable. Self-trust is not motivational, it's statistical. It's built on data from repetition. If you keep your word 10 times in a row, your internal confidence shifts. Not because you told yourself you're strong, but because you proved it. Identity shifts through proof. Proof comes from repetition. The psychological shift. Let's go deeper. Your brain is wired for pattern recognition. It builds identity from observed patterns. If the pattern is inconsistency, it labels you inconsistent. If the pattern is discipline, it labels you disciplined. You don't consciously choose that label. It forms automatically. That's why small habits matter. Not because of the immediate result, but because of the pattern they reinforce. Every time you show up, you cast a vote. Every repetition is a vote for a version of you. One vote doesn't matter, but hundreds do. Identity is the sum of votes. The problem with starting over. When you constantly restart, you reset the identity shift. You never build enough repetition to change self-perception. You stay in the intention phase. Forever trying, never becoming. That's exhausting because trying without becoming feels frustrating. But becoming requires repetition beyond emotion. It requires repetition when you're bored, when you're tired, when you're not inspired, when nobody is watching. That's where identity forms. Personal standards and repetition. Your standards determine what you repeat. If your standard is flexible, your repetition will be inconsistent. If your standard is firm, your repetition becomes automatic. For example, if your standard is, I train when I feel like it, you'll repeat inconsistency. If your standard is, I train no matter what, you'll repeat discipline. Standards remove negotiation. Repetition follows standards. Identity follows repetition. Everything connects. Mindset shift. Stop asking, who do I want to be? Start asking, what am I repeating? Because what you repeat answers the question honestly. If you repeat excuses, you're becoming someone who excuses. If you repeat discipline, you're becoming someone disciplined. If you repeat growth, you're becoming someone who evolves. You don't need a new personality. You need new repetitions. Practical system, the repetition rule. Step 1, choose one identity, not 10. 1. Maybe it's I am consistent, or I finish what I start, or I show up daily. Step 2, define one behavior that proves it. If consistency is the goal, define what daily consistency looks like. Step 3, track repetitions, not results. Count how many times you show up, not how dramatic the outcome is. Step 4, protect the streak. Not because streaks are magical, but because they reinforce pattern recognition. After 30 days, your brain begins shifting. After 90 days, your self-perception changes. After a year, your identity feels permanent, but only if you don't stop. Reflection. Pause. What identity are you trying to build? Now ask, what behaviors are you repeating that contradict it? Where are your actions misaligned with your intentions? Where are you hoping instead of repeating? Pause there, because awareness is responsibility, and responsibility builds power. Long-term construction. This channel is about construction. Construction is repetitive. Brick after brick, day after day. No building appears overnight. It is assembled through repetition. So are you. If you repeat discipline for 5 years, you become disciplined. If you repeat skill building for 5 years, you become skilled. If you repeat avoidance for 5 years, you become stuck. Time doesn't change identity. Repetition over time does. Challenge the excuse. You might say, but I'm not naturally that type of person. No one is naturally anything. Everything is trained. Confidence is trained. Discipline is trained. Communication is trained. Execution is trained through repetition. Stop labeling yourself permanently based on temporary patterns. You are not fixed. You are practiced. And what is practiced can be replaced. The compounding effect. Here's the powerful part. Repetition compounds. Small daily effort looks insignificant, but after 1,000 repetitions, you are unrecognizable. Not because of one dramatic moment, but because of accumulated behavior. Compounding doesn't feel exciting, it feels subtle. But subtle growth outlasts explosive bursts. Explosive bursts burn out. Compounding builds legacy. Final reflection. If someone observed your daily repetitions, what identity would they assign you? Not based on your words, based on your behavior. Would they say disciplined, focused, reliable, or inconsistent? Distracted, reactive? This isn't judgment, it's awareness. Because the good news is simple. You can change the pattern. And when you change the pattern, identity follows. Closing. Identity is not declared, it is demonstrated. It is repeated. It is reinforced daily. You don't become strong by intending to be strong. You become strong by lifting repeatedly. You don't become disciplined by planning discipline. You become disciplined by executing repeatedly. You don't become confident by wishing for it. You become confident by acting despite fear repeatedly. Stop chasing intention. Start building repetition. Because intention feels powerful, but repetition is power. And the person you become is not determined by what you hope. It is determined by what you repeat. So repeat wisely, because you are building yourself every single day. And whether you realize it or not, you are always becoming someone.